All right, people keep leaving comments that they want to know what I know about 2026 models for Harley Davidson. So today, we're going to get into a few things that I do know and what I think is going to happen. But I don't have any big leaks or anything yet. Some of this is pretty easy to figure out based on moves Harley Davidson's made and things they've already announced. Let's start with the launch date because that kind of sets us up for when this stuff is going to happen, when we should know more information. Now, in the Q2 earnings call, the CEO and the president of commercial, Jonathan Root, talked about the launch date changing this year and that they are going to go back to launching bikes in the fall, but that's going to be kind of a multi-stage thing. They're not going to be just all at once this year. They're going to probably release some bikes at one point and then later release other bikes. Now, my thought is with EICMA being in early November and that most other manufacturers are previewing new models at EICMA, that they're going to try and get whatever new models they can out before EICMA. So I'm expecting late October. So that's one reason I'm going ahead and putting the video out now, because we might see something here in just a few weeks. Now, one thing that throws a wrench into all of this is on October 1st, Artie Starrs takes over as CEO for Harley Davidson. Now, I don't expect him to make huge changes in the first week and change deadlines and dates and all that stuff without understanding what all it impacts. So I don't think that is going to change the launch date stuff that is planned in any immediate future, but it could change the dates for what they're doing in January, if they were to bring out, let's say, carryover models in January still, or something like that. So we'll see. There's still some time for things that are happening down the road, but what I think is going to happen immediately is something else that Harley Davidson announced in that earnings call. The CEO said that they were bringing back the Sprint and that they could manufacture this motorcycle for less than $6,000. Now, I did a full video on the Sprint, but just a quick recap. The Sprint was originally like a 250cc model that moved up to a 350cc model back in the 70s, and it was a single cylinder. It wasn't a V-twin. I don't really consider that a cruiser, at least not in the Harley Davidson world. The cruisers are the Softails. That's literally what they call them on the website, and then the Sportsters, and then the Grand American Touring. So a small CC displacement to me is almost like a whole new category in the Harley Davidson world. But I get Honda Rebel 300, 500, the Royal Enfield 350 Classic, which is the type of bikes I expect this to compete with, probably consider themselves standards or cruisers on their websites. So a little hard to say if the cruiser that he said was going to come back is also the Sprint, or if he was actually sneakily referring to two different bikes, a classic cruiser and the Sprint. We'll have to wait and see, but there's a possibility there might be some other cruiser model coming. When we get done with this video, I want you to make sure you leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think if they're going to come out with another cruiser model, and what would it be? What would be a classic cruiser? Do you consider the Sprint a cruiser? Or do you think that was something else? Or do you just don't think he knows the difference between a cruiser and some small CC displacement bike like the Sprint? The other thing we know is no more Rushmore models in the future. So Project Rushmore was like 2014's changeover on the touring models. We got improvements in motor. I think that's when they went to the 103HO, different body lines and fairing and suspension and several things. The boombox, GTS, and all that stuff was part of Project Rushmore. And the Road King was part of Project Rushmore at that time, but we didn't have a Road King Special. Now, the Road King has been dropped, and we still have the Road King Special, but it was not part of Project Rushmore. So when they say no more Project Rushmore bikes, what I know we're talking about are the Tri-Glide and the Road Glide 3, because they have Rushmore fairings, and I would consider those to be Rushmore bikes. Now, the Road Glide 3 came out after Rushmore. I get that, but it's a Rushmore fairing, and it's the last thing with the old Road Glide fairing. And the Tri-Glide is the last thing with the old Batwing. So I think the Trikes are due for an upgrade. I think if they don't upgrade those bikes this year, people are going to continue to wait for those upgrades to come, and sales are going to stall even further. I think they've given trike riders a couple years to know this was coming and to buy a trike now if they didn't want the new style, or they can buy used. But they're going to bring the new technology, the new infotainment center, the new fairings to the trikes this year. Now the question will be, will they bring independent rear suspension to the trikes? That's something I hear a lot from trike riders that they want and would be an improvement on the trikes, would be independent rear suspension. I don't have any clue if they're going to bring that. That's something we'll have to be watching for. I do expect, besides the infotainment centers, we're going to see that center-cooled 117. I have it in my Street Glide back here, this 24, and I can tell you after riding all summer that 225 is as hot as it gets. I still have my 16 back there, and I rode it some this summer back-to-back on days when it was in the 90s, and the center-cooled definitely does improve the temperature you're getting off the motor for the rider, the comfortability, keeping the temperature down. My 16 is decatted, so it runs a little cooler than maybe a stock bike would to begin with, and it's still a significant difference to me. Now, my 24 still has the original header and cat in it, so we haven't changed any of that out. So, again, a pretty big improvement there. I hope for sure that the 117 center-cooled comes to the new trikes. Now, I talked about the Road King Special a minute ago. I think it's going to be cut, even though technically it may not be a Rushmore model. I mean, it has some of the body lines and features. It's probably here or there which way you classify it. But the fact is, sales haven't been great. And a buddy of mine, JS, did a video on the Road King being cut, and I agree with all the things he says. I'm going to leave a link to his video down below. You can check that out if you're interested in what's going on with the Road King and more details. There was one thing that we talked about that he meant to put in the video and he didn't, so I'm going to mention it here. Sales have been down on the Road King and the Road King Special for several years now. I think part of that is Harley Davidson's fault. Price differentiation. The pricing difference wasn't enough between the Road King Special and the Street Glide to make people buy the Road King Special, when they're like, well, for $1,000 more, I can get the Street Glide. Maybe that's smart. Maybe that moves more people up into a more expensive bike. Maybe it's not. One of the other problems with the Road King that he talked about is the fact that the bike hasn't had any significant updates since like 2019 when they came out with the 114. So for 6 years, it's had no real changes while all these other models are getting changes, but the pricing has continued to go up along with those other models. Now, they did drop the price on the Road King Special a little bit this year to try and change that kind of mid-year a few months ago, but I think that's a little too late. I think a lot of the damage has been done for the sales records for the last several years. Hopefully they learn from those mistakes and don't continue to make those mistakes going forward. Now, another model I think we might see, think it makes sense, would be a Road Glide Ultra or a Road Glide Limited. Now, I talked about this before the 25s came out and that it made sense for Harley Davidson to just do packages. And they started out that way. The Road Glide, you can get a package to turn it into essentially a Road Glide Ultra. You can get fairings and a tourer pack and all this stuff bundled together and have yourself like a Road Glide Ultra. And when I say Road Glide Ultra, I'm talking about the equivalent of the Street Glide Ultra, which a lot of people are upset. It's not the same as the Ultra Limited that we had in the past. So maybe we get a Road Glide Limited with all the bells and whistles on it built in, just like it used to be on the Road Glide Limited in the previous body style. And then you don't have a Road Glide Ultra, you just do a package to do a Road Glide Ultra. Maybe they're testing the waters here between packages and models. The Street Glide Ultra got a lot of criticism when it first came out because it was missing a few key features, but it was also cheaper in price in comparison to the Ultra Limited. So I think we should see something in that Road Glide family like that with the touring models. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. It's just going to be how it is bundled and packaged up. All right, guys, that's what I know and what I think. Again, my opinions. The things I know are the sprint's coming. I don't know exactly when. And I know that it's been said no more Rushmore models. So those are things that I'm basing this on. And the others just, what makes sense to me, what I've seen Harley Davidson do in the past, and what I think they should do again. All right, I got to get ready to go to Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. Y'all stay safe, keep on riding, and we'll see you in the next one.